Well, welcome back to another session at OMSI 2, another instructional video on driving the bus. We're going to select this time Grondorf and loading without buses, and we could change our date and time as we've done before, and we want to make sure it's a day of the week, and also click on day so we can get our hour at 12 noon, and then we can, here we are, we're changing to a day of the week, and then click on day so we can change our hour to 8 in the morning. That should be fine. Now Grondorf is a fictitious city that is really for learning how to drive, and it only has one route. We're going to pick on Bahnhof as a location, Nordspitz Bahnhof, and that would be our location where the camera takes us to view. In the past, I said it's not really important where you choose your opening location. It really isn't, but it helps because we're going to want to create our bus at this location. And so we'll find that we have our menu here on the bottom right, and we're going to click on Create Bus, the very first icon. And we see we already have a bus out there. That is the AI bus. We could select the AI bus, and if we wanted to, and just start driving that, that's our quick start. But instead, we're going to go ahead and create a bus and choose SD200 and 1980. I believe the 80 stands for the year of make. So it would be SD200, SD80. And then you can choose any paint job scheme you want to have. There's different ones here to choose from. And in this session, what we're going to do is set up our bus and learn how to get it going, and the switches on the panels, and driving the bus. Now, once you do all that, it will place your bus at the location. Don't worry, it's not going to be placed on top of an existing AI bus. Now we see that there's these different icons in the first row. The double arrow is the switch. Then we have the X for deleting the bus. We have the location of the bus, and the CPU is changing the bus from either jumping onto AI bus or letting the AI take over. We also have in the bottom row a number of icons. The question mark brings up the navigation system, and then the date and time we can change, the weather we can change, the controller we're using, and then our profile. The middle row is for the navigation. The middle row of icons is for the navigation system. We'll get back to that later. Let's jump into the bus and take a closer look at the gauges. On the left two gauges are your air pressure in bar, and then we have our speedometer in kilometers, and there's also a clock there. And we want to turn that ignition switch, as you see. I'm sorry the mouse isn't viewable, and then you click on the button right above the ignition switch. That's your battery switch, and then the button above that starts the engine. Once we get the engine started, we're going to wait for the air pressure to get up. In the meantime, there's a number of switches on our driver's dash panel here, and also if you see on the IBIS system, you can press the hour and date to get the date and time. We're going to want to pull our heat on up, and then the driver's ventilation, pull it up halfway, and then the bus ventilation, and then all the way to the right, that pulls in outside air and heats it up. Midway is just pulling in cool, fresh air from the outside. All the way down is recirculation, and our thermometer is there in degrees Celsius. F2 would get us into the inside the bus, and F3 takes us outside the bus, and you can see we don't have anything set for the destination on the outside of the bus. Passengers won't get on your bus until they know that your bus is going somewhere, and that seems pretty obvious. And let's talk about the door system here. We have the parking brake on. We only need the parking brake on when we're parking the bus overnight or permanent, or we're getting off for a while. But when we're driving the bus, we can turn the parking brake off. Now take a look. Once we get up past 8 millibars, we have enough air and we're ready to go. We can put our steering wheel back on and drive off. But right now, let's talk a little bit about the outside doors and how those front. So we'll release the parking brake, and then we want to set on the station brake. The station brake is the lever, the button that pops up all the way to the right next to the two red buttons. Now up is the brake is on, and once the brake is on, we're able to push the red buttons to open the door. One for the one door and the other red button for the other door. So you can mess about with that for a little bit until you get used to that. Now if I'm putting the parking brake back on, although I normally wouldn't have to show you the switch. That switch above the station brake is for the rear door. If the driver wants to open the rear door, he can throw that switch, and he can also still open and close the front doors. Now the rear door, of course, will open automatically anytime a passenger wants to get off. They can pull the cable, and whenever the station brake is applied, the rear door will open. The driver can do the same thing by throwing the switch and turning on that yellow light. The same yellow light that the passengers can turn on, the driver can turn that on also by throwing the switch. And as soon as he pops the station brake, then the rear doors will open. Station brake, rear doors automatically open when the yellow light is on. Whether the passengers initiate the yellow light or the driver initiates it with the switch. The only difference is, in order to close the doors, the driver will have to throw that switch off. When he's throwing the switch on, then the doors will open and stay open. And that's the difference. If the passengers throw the switch on, when the passengers initiate the doors, they open and close automatically based on the station brake. Now once we're ready to go, we got air pressure up, we're heating up the bus, and we got fuel, because you can see your fuel gauge and your battery gauge and all that. We can put the steering wheel back in place by putting the mouse right below in the steering column. Our artificial bus is taken off, and now we can drive off and begin our tour. Now I know that was a lot of information to take in. You may want to just review and watch this a couple times, but take it down and let's go for a drive. I want to talk a little bit about driving the bus before we actually stop and pick up passengers. Coming down this hill. This stoplight is so hard to see. If you park right up to the line, you really can't see that stoplight. I always have to get out into the F3 to get me out to external view and wait and then pop back in. Now we're going to make a right hand turn here. And in driving a bus, one of the things that we all know we need to make a wide turn, but right hand turns are usually kind of difficult. You have to get that bus all the way out and drive a nice wide turn so you don't clip the curb with the rear right tire. Now, it's quite often a bus driver, if he has a tight turn like that and he has oncoming traffic, the only option may be to run the tire over the curb. We try not to do that, but sometimes it's the only option we have. Now, there's a difference now with, like, when you're driving a truck, a Euro truck, you are in the driver's seat on top of the wheel, and you're pretty much directing your body into the path of travel. With the bus, what I'm doing right now is doing that. I'm driving with myself into the path of travel, and I want to show you the difficulty, why we don't want to do that. We are not fully to the right of the road. We are kind of scooted over the center line a little bit. And so by looking down on the bus, I want to show you how far back the front wheels are. So the front wheels, you can see it popping out there. The front wheels are way behind where you're sitting as the bus driver. So you got to remember, as a bus driver, you're sitting in front of the wheels, and what you need to do is drive the front wheels into the path of travel. It's that you always have that in your mind, that you're driving the front wheels into the path of travel. You're not driving your body into the path of travel. In fact, looking at this, you can see, if you think about where the bus driver's sitting, he's almost right over the curb. He's not over the curb, but he's right along the side of the curb. But the right-hand side of the front of the bus is over the curb. And you can see the sidewalk has two patterns. If we drive the right wheel up against the curb for a second, just to show you that the front of the bus is swiping the inner pattern of the sidewalk with the smaller stone pattern. And if you're a pedestrian, you probably want to walk not in that area, but you're going to want to walk on the larger tile pattern of the sidewalk, because a bus could come in if he's making this is a very sharp turn, by the way. So let's go ahead and turn our wheel back out. Look how far back that wheel is, and drive that front wheel right along the center line. And and you can see the bus is, even the rear of the bus is still not all the way over. That's because we pulled in a little to the middle. But we can drive our front wheel right along the center line there. And our bus driver, of course, would be way over into the road. Now take a look at this pedestrian walking by. He's smart enough to make sure he's walking on the larger pattern, and he won't get hit by the bus that way. So I think you got the concept. We're driving the front wheels into the traffic pattern that we want the bus to go, and not the front of the bus. Now, coming up to a stop, we're going to have to whenever we make a right hand turn, we're going to need to make that nice and wide. Take a look for traffic, and then we can go out and make ourselves a nice, kind of scoot over to the left and cheat as much as you can, and then make a nice wide. Now, thinking about that, it's actually going to put the driver almost over the center line. I had to cut it tight. Looking at the rear mirror, the right side mirror, you may want to watch that again. You're going to look out the right side rear mirror whenever you make a right hand turn to watch your rear tire doesn't clip the curb. It's very hard. I'd be honest with you, it's probably difficult to see in the video, but when you're actually in the game and you're driving, looking at that right mirror whenever you make a right hand turn, you can see when the walk is closing in on the side of the bus. And we'll make a left hand turn here. And it looks like this guy's going to wait for us as we make our turn. One of the things we need to do as a bus driver, we're a little tough on the brake, is learn how to get ourselves out of situations. We turn down a dead-end street like this one. You may be tempted to take the bus to a full turn to get yourself out. It won't do that. You're going to need to swing wide, follow along the sidewalk here, inch your way up to the sidewalk curb, and remember, you're going to be over the curb because your tires are behind you. Take advantage of that. You can pull your tires all the way up. Reverse the bus. Look in the right side mirror. Remember, put it in neutral first, then reverse. Then you can back the bus up. You want to do this anyway. Practice backing the bus up and seeing how it behaves with the turn radius, especially with your body being forward to the tires. And then once you back the bus up far enough, you can then swing it back around, and that's how you turn yourself around in one of these streets. You don't have to swing tight and run over the curb and run through bushes and people and pedestrians and all that stuff. You can make that. You can make those dead-end streets by backing the bus up and reversing it. And watching that side mirror, we're watching that curb, and we're way out over the line with our body. But remember, our tires are not. Our front axle is driving in the path that we want. And make our next stop. I pulled way out in front of this line. I don't even know what the light's doing. Look at this guy tailgating. Can you imagine that? What nerve. This guy's stopping, so I must have the green light. So I went ahead and I stopped way past where I'm supposed to stop. But for one last view, we're going to get our view so we can see that right side mirror. We're watching the curb, making sure our right tire doesn't clip it, and we're making a nice perfect swing, driving our front axle and tires into the path of travel that we want. And of course the driver's seat looks like you're going over, and you're actually swinging wide over the center line in order to do so. And that is some of the basic techniques you'll need and skills for driving the bus, and you'd be ready to pick up passengers at this point. And you know how to pull the bus to a stop whenever we put the brake on. Just this somebody jaywalking across the road. Yeah, whenever we touch the brakes, that's the secret to these old buses, is once you touch the brake, it will continually brake. And the beauty of that is once you do that, the bus will continually brake on its own, bringing you to a nice smooth stop, rather than you squeezing the brake and having an abrupt stop. Right side mirror, watch the curb. This is going back up this hill is one of the tough right hand turns, I find. A lot of times I end up driving my rear tire over the curb. And if you do, don't worry, it's not, you may have some passengers complain, but you're fine. In the wintertime, I don't know, I hadn't driven this in the winter, but you may have to gear down to 1 or 2 in the wintertime. But I'm going up in the normal automatic drive. So that's it. You're ready to drive the bus and pick up passengers.